Hey guys, King of Charmander here. Today I'll be your judge, your jury, and your analyst. And today I bring to you my top 5 teams for the Love Cup. So, Love Cup is a very interesting cup. I kind of tried to like wrap my... Well, it's... You know, when Double Charm works, like last season, bruh, it's like, dude, like what the hell. Anyways, so here's what we're gonna do. So, a lot of my teams are really accessible mons that you basically should already have, except for one, which I'll highlight in the video. And I just can't seem to find a way around, like, Licky Safe Switch. Licky Safe Switch is probably the best Safe Switch in the meta, just because of the fact that you can Hyper Beam through shields and possibly KO a lot of things. And because of its bulk, even if it's matched up against something like Medicham, you can easily put something like a Charmer. Or even better, yeah, if you put like, yeah, you could put a Charmer or something of that sort, and like, you can get around Medicham in the back. So, there's a lot of ways you could like, trap certain things or just farm them down, which is why Crustle was so good in this cup. Because Crustle was basically able to obliterate the Fire-type meta, and SmackDown also is, you smack everything down. You know, it's like Tuesday Night SmackDown. For those of you that watch wrestling, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The old days of wrestling were definitely a lot better. Well, I don't know. Wrestling nowadays it's a lot more diverse compared to the meatheadish ways of back in the day, because you know, back in the day all you really had as a high flyer was kind of like RVD, Rey Mysterio, the Hurricane. Yes, King of Charmander's, well, yes, I've watched wrestling for a very long time. Anyways, my mental health tip for the day. Okay, so make sure y'all check up on your friends, you know what I mean? There's something called seasonal depression where it kind of like goes around every season, and it happens. So, if you don't take care of yourself, you're prone to seasonal depression. For those of you that think you're having a bad day and you're depressed, you're probably just having a bad day. Unless you feel hopeless, you feel suicidal. In that case, you should definitely seek mental health professionals or medical help and get some... Because there's a lot of ways. There's actually... It's very accessible. So, more on that later because it just really... But yes, make sure you check on your friends. I usually say that once a week. Check up on your friends, check up on your family, make sure everyone's okay, and of course, make sure you're taking care of yourself. It's a great mental health. It's a weekly one just because you never know, you know what I mean? Usually what happens when something bad happens is you're shocked because you didn't know about it. If you know your friend's really ill and something's gonna happen, then you're a lot more prepared than when not. Because if it just comes as a shock, then you're just like, oh my god, and then everything just comes out. So, again, check up on your friends, check up on your family, and make sure you take care of yourself. And anyways, that's my mental health tip for the day, and this is my top 5 teams for the Love Cup. Alright, so team number 1, I got Talonflame lead, Electrode, and Medicham. Of course, Talonflame is the most powerful lead. We already know that. Electrode with Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam is the standard moveset. You will never, like, no foul play. You could Hyper Beam through shields, etc., and Electrode is beastly. Medicham in the back is a closer, and of course, as we know, Medicham XL is freaking overpowered. So, this team is amazing. It's amazing. As you see, great across the board. The only problem is you're not going to have a lot of bulk. This team is just reckless amounts of damage. Literal reckless amount of damage, and the bulkiest thing you have on this team is your Medicham XL. Safety is B, well, that's perfectly fine. Electrode does really well against a whole lot of combinations, especially for the fact that not a lot of things actually resist electric type in this meta, or I don't believe there's really anything that does. Because Rock doesn't resist electric, so yeah. With that being said, Electrode's, like, I would say the safest save switch outside of another one, which is basically Lickitung XL, so... As you see, overall, this team has a very low threat score. Magcargo is your biggest threat on this team. So, say switch into Electrode, try to win back switch, and then realign with Medicham and Talonflame. Of course, Magcargo and Talonflame is insanely powerful. However, its worst nemesis is, of course, Magcargo. And both of them both lose to the Fishy. So, Fishy is very, very dangerous. Alomomola is beastly and very, very powerful. However, Electrode and Medicham do have a chance against Alomomola. So, it's what kind of sucks about Magcargo being in there. Well, it doesn't really suck. It's Magcargo and Talonflame kind of like bounce off of each other. You pick one or you pick the other, or like you're just gonna see people running water to death, or you're gonna see just Electrodes running around. So that's what's kind of annoying. Love Cup, I would say last year's meta was actually a lot more fun than this one, just because this one, you have, so the general concept about a meta, when we talk about meta in gaming, there's usually balance, so things are nerfed, etc. Pokemon Go has no chill. It will just overpower everything. You will have 300 things, and that will be a meta, and that is not healthy. And not only that, for like competitive aspects whatsoever, it's terrible because there's really no like intricate strategies, etc. that you can do. Then again, GBL is blind. So back in the day, season 1 was actually a lot more fun because you can predict. Like, you can predict hard as hell. Nowadays, you don't really predict. It's kind of like Hail Mary because it's blind. So, yeah. But basically what I'm trying to say is the more Pokemon you add to a pool, the more annoying a meta gets and the more unpredictable something does. And it gets even harder and harder to predict top teams or create top teams. Just because I've done it for like 8 consecutive seasons, and for multiple different cups, that doesn't mean it was difficult as hell. Like, it was really hard, like, to find intricate strategies for each and every one. So, yeah. Anyways, putting that out, yes, this is what makes this team very interesting. Still very powerful, though. If you really like Talonflame, this team is for you. Alright, next up we got Alomomola, Lickitung, and Clefable. Lickitung Safe Switch is arguably the best Safe Switch in this game. Just because if you're able to get a Hyper Beam through a Medicham shields, then it does big damage, and you could possibly take back Switch. Alomomola and Clefable are here to align. Alomomola tap-taps, and Clefable tap-taps as well. The reason why we have Clefable here is just because of other fighters. Charm, Psychic, Meteor Mash is very... You could replace Clefable with Wigglytuff if you want to. It's just for the fighter matchup. For example, you switch, and then you try to farm down Medicham. Medicham will get obliterated by Clefable, and of course, you resist counter. So if it is voided out with Power-Up Punch, then you should be fine. It's not quite like One Punch Man with Medicham. It's more like, 100 punches. Or like, if you watch Fist of the Northern Star, Omaiwa no Shinjeru. And... yeah, Nani. That's basically what it is. Anyways, this team is absolutely, like, not goated. Not, even though it's like, this, if I am in fact Filipino, so this is not racist. I am Asian. Our mothers and our families expect us to get straight A's most of the time. And as you see, if this is an Asian mom's perfect team, as you see here, A's across the board. What's really low against the overall meta? Really low death score 573. Lickitung versus Alomomola in the lead isn't bad per se. Power Whip does big damage, but the thing is, Fishy is so godforsakenly tanky, you could sack it in the lead. Fishy does really well against, as you see, a more wide variety of meta picks. There's not really, other than water on water action, nothing really resists water. And Alomomola practically erases Crustle and all the fire types in this meta. You can replace it with Slowbro, it's up to you. Lickitung, you safe switch, Clefable closes out. You catch the fire lead, you safe switch to Lickitung. Lickitung gets the whole beating crap out of it unless you Hyper Beam through shields. Then Alomomola and Clefable charm and waterfall their way to victory. Alright, next up we got Scrafty, Electrode, and Charizard. So Scrafty is a very, very destructive pick. If you can rev up with Pop, Scrafty goes to town. And the reason why Scrafty is also beastly is because of the confusion users. It resists confusion, so it resists those confusion users, as well as being able to resist those ghost types, so basically Lick from Lickitung. If Scrafty revs up with Power Up Punch, Foul Play does big damage. And because of the difference of energy between Psychic and Foul Play, Scrafty is monstrous. You could do the same thing with Medicham. However, again, because Psychic takes a little bit to get to, along with that, Scrafty is able to resist Lick from Lickitung, unlike the other way around. So if the Lickitung leads start becoming heavy, Scrafty will be your best friend. Electrode is your safe switch, Charizard is to close out. It's basically 2 counters to Scrafty's weakness, which is basically Medicham and of course Charmers, where Electrode and Charizard with resistance can take it out. I contemplated on putting Ariados to switch just to catch those Charmers. However, if you get burned down by a Talonflame, Scrafty and Charizard are going to get destroyed. I've seen it a lot in practice, so. As you see here, a lot of coverage, great coverage, not a lot of bulk. This is damage, and it's Scrafty's revving up, break shield, Electrode, and Charizard, nuke the unholy hell out of your opponent. As you see, very, very low threat score. There's not any one Mon that will break this entire team. Your back row, again, because of Electrode's electric type not being resisted by a lot of the meta outside of freaking, I would say, Vileplume, it's very, very powerful. And also, again, Scrafty can rev up and do a lot of damage and break shields. So with Foul Play, you're able to chunk up some damage. You could sack in the lead, and then you can send Electrode and Charizard to farm whatever's in the back and then close out. Or you just flat out win the lead and realign. So very, very strong team. As you see, a very, very low threat score. Not the lowest I've seen, though. There is lower, but again, Scrafty has its uses versus Medicham. Of course, you lose to Medicham, but Scrafty has a wide variety of uses against a lot of leads in this meta. So that's why even though last Love Cup, you probably saw some Scrafties running around. You're probably like, why? Because it's really that good. Alright, next up we got Charizard, Lickitung, and Medicham. So Charizard lead, it is, well, it's not the #1 lead, but it's top 3 for a reason. Being able to take out the fighters, having a good chance against the fire type users, because Blast Burn still hits big damage, and with Dragon Claw you can bait shields. So it's very, very strong, very, very powerful, has a lot of uses, and it was used a lot in the last Love Cup, kind of as a substitute to Talonflame. You probably noticed it running around a lot. Lickitung Safe Switch. Oh, whoops, not Power Whip. Hyper Beam, because you know, hashtag get beamed. Beaming is important. You know, all beams. We beam. We beam. Beam or bust. But yeah, Lickitung is your Safe Switch. The only issue is it's XL. There's no real difference between. If you run the sim, like, Lickitung at level 40 and 50 are generally, well, it depends on what matchup you have, but then you can do a level 40 Lickitung, but level 50's bulk is just so dang good. And if you get the mirror match, the damage and the bulk can add up. And whoever, of course, if your opponent is ballsy enough to have Hyper Beam Lickitung is insanely powerful. Just like Electrode Hyper Beam, you Hyper Beam through shields, you can possibly win back switch, and it does a lot of work. Medicham is to close out. Medicham and Lickitung make up for the bulk for Charizard, which is why you have the B rating. Very safe, lot of coverage. And as you see here, a very, very low threat score. Talonflame is your worst nightmare, but honestly, Talonflame isn't bad. Because Talonflame versus Charizard, because Charizard has Wing Attack and Dragon Claw, you can outpace Talonflame to its moves. And Talonflame has to burb you. Charizard can comfortably take Flame Charges. So it's still a risky matchup, but it's what it is. Safe switching against Alomomola, Lickitung versus Alomomola matchup. I've double Hyper Beamed with this team so many times, it's ridiculous. So it's so much fun. Your only risk is probably going to be Magcargo. The snail, the fire snail of destruction, is a very, very powerful mon. And unfortunately, with its rock typing, will resist Hyper Beam. And for Medicham, you're basically going to have to line up against Medicham. Doesn't mean it's an auto loss, because Charizard does resist Incinerate. The problem is Magcargo does have Rock Tomb, so that's why Charizard's, it's very, very dangerous. But Charizard is still very powerful. It's also the most powerful safe switch according to data-wise. I'm still iffy about that because Electrodes and Alomomolas run around everywhere, but statistically it technically is because of its versatility. But as you see here, this team does have a low threat score. If you like Charizard, the only issue with this team is Lickitung XL. I know a lot of y'all don't have Lickitung XLs, but like Lickitung and Electrode from practice, and they are the most powerful safe switches in this meta. So are not really most power, a lot of safe switches. Well, the only safe switches that don't get locked. Lickitung does lose to fighters, but because of Hyper Beam, you have power. And of course, Electrode, they're outside of Vileplume, nothing really resists electric types in this cup. And last but not least, we got Magcargo, Electrode, and Wigglytuff. This is just a variation of my top 3 Magcargo teams. This is a very RPS-y team. Magcargo is there to beat the bug types, / incinerate the heck out of these Charmers. Electrode is your safe switch, and Wigglytuff closes out. Electrode covers Magcargo. Wigglytuff Electrode covers Magcargo's water weakness. Wigglytuff covers the fighter weakness. Very, very powerful mon. As you see here, A for coverage, not a lot of bulk. This is a very RPS-y team, like I mentioned. It's safe, but like I mentioned, rock, paper, scissors, right? Rock, paper, scissors, go. I love it when content creators are like, you can kind of predict the meta. I'm like, how can you... That's because GBL is blind, and with so much meta nowadays, there's no way you can really predict the meta. Even in Master League, you know, have you ever had that one time where you're like, oh, I know it's art, if you've seen it on like stream or whatever, you're like, oh, I know what they have in the back, and they totally have the hard counter, which everything, and you just look at them and you're like, wow. That's basically what it is. But as you see here, this team is very powerful. Somewhat high threat score, but the reason why is because Magcargo, but you're gonna have to play out the mirror. As you see, you play out the mirror, try to win back, and then, or what happens is that you're gonna straight Rock Tomb each other to death. So whoever wins CMP possibly wins the match, or if you could get those extra incinerates through, that's how you win the mirror. If you get those extra incinerates through, or if their Magcargo isn't carrying Rock Tomb, they're carrying Rock Slide instead, then you can debuff them to death because Rock Tomb was buffed. And then what happens is you farm down their Magcargo with Electrode, and then you can hopefully close out with shields or with energy advantage. Super strong team, very, very powerful. You lose lead, say switch in Electrode, and then after that, Wiggles erases whatever's in the front, and hopefully you can close out the back row. So Magcargo overheat is still very, very powerful, so even though you get locked into a fighter per se, they're not going to kill you immediately. So if you can rev up and blast them with like overheats from hell, then you could possibly come out with win conditions. There's a lot of times where I've like overheated Medichams that have chip damage and KO'd them with this team in practice. So it's been really good, and hopefully it does well for you. Magcargo is still really strong. Again, Magcargo and Talonflame are kind of funny because Talonflame never really had anything in a meta. I could resist both of its moves, and here comes Magcargo. Yay, you got a flaming snail that's super powerful. I mean, it could be a lot of fun in this cup, but Magcargo is factually incredibly powerful and does really well if you can cover its weaknesses and get it up with the right matchups. And of course, Rock Tomb's debuff is also a nice bonus. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Love Cup is very... I don't know. The fact that you could 5-0 pretty easy with Medicham Double Charm back in the day, it's pretty freaking hilarious. And you can actually possibly do the same thing this season, especially if your opponent has a fighter, which might be a lot more prevalent because of Magcargo, basically. The meta is either gonna be like, everyone's gonna be like excited to use Magcargo for the beginning, and then after that, you'll start seeing like all these fancy ones, people copying creator teams, and then just, yeah, it's just gonna be a mess. Just like pretty much most special cups nowadays. Kind of like the Sinnoh Cup, where it was kind of RPS-y, and you could find like itchy win cons. Love Cup is a lot more forgiving, thanks to like Electrode's presence, etc. Galarian Slowbro is like our Slow King. Like people are, well, no, it's Slowbro, yeah. I mean, it's like, here's the thing, it's, if you could blast through shields, that's great, but 9 times out of 10, they're probably not going to blast through shields. And if you look at G Slowpoke's ratings across the board, kinda not worth it because it's so freaking squishy. That's the problem. Yes, you could blast through shields, etc. However, the problem is because it's a psychic type, you take super effective damage from Lickitung. Focus Blast still takes a lot to get to, and it's squishy. So G Slowbro, even though people are like it's a anti-meta say switch, that's if you fire Focus Blast, and that's a big if considering the fact that, again, G Slowbro doesn't have a lot of bulk. I hope you guys enjoyed the video again. Do me a huge favor, please like and subscribe. Hopefully these teams do help you out a bit. Next to these 2 Charmanders right here, there is a new Charmander. This is like the beanie one. I think it's like the Christmas one. Yeah, it's Christmas. So with this, if you do me a huge favor, please like and subscribe. It's totally free. You could easily do that. You see that little sub box at the bottom right? Put your mouse over it, boom, you easily subscribe. Really appreciate my current subscribers. I really appreciate y'all. We've been crushing it lately. So hopefully you crush it in the Love Cup. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.